Okay, so this is video number 3, and we're going to take our sword setup and constrain it to a real world rig using the two-hand setup. So we'll have one hand driving, the other hand following. I've decided to put one hand in forward kinematics, so the lead hand forward kinematics, and the follow hand in inverse kinematics. You absolutely need inverse kinematics in order to make something follow an object. As you probably know, you can't translate joints, otherwise weird stuff happens. So it's pointless trying to constrain it to a weapon because you just have to deform the mesh. Whereas if you're in IK, obviously it influences all of the joints. So that's why I've done it this way. I could have both arms in IK, but if you want to create nice smooth arcs for a sword swipe, for instance, it's way better to do that using forward kinematics because it naturally has arcs built into it, whereas IKs, it's all translation, so you can't get a nice circular arc in the same way. So that said, let's get going. So we've got the same sword that we used last time. Here he is here, our two-handed sword setup. Exactly the same rig. So we're going to go ahead and constrain him. So first thing we need to do is make the sword follow our hand. So let's find what we want it to follow. Now I've, in creating this rig, I added an extra follow joint. You see this guy here? He's just an empty joint that I put into the hand so that I can attach things to it. It doesn't matter if I use him. I could just use the normal wrist controller, but I put that in case I was using a weapon that didn't have a rig like this. But because we have offsets built into our weapon, we can essentially attach it to whatever the hell we want. Still, I'd rather use the hand attach, just because I made it, so why not? So I'll grab that guy first because he is the source. Now let's grab our target. So it would be hand 1 sword group. There he is. So that's the main controller for our group. And let's just go constrain, parent constrain, and make sure we uncheck maintain offset. So he should snap. There we go. He snapped and he is all over the place. So let's grab our offset and reposition this sword in a way that makes some kind of sense to us. I won't spend ages doing this, but I'll get it somewhere near what we want. That's pretty close, almost there. Yeah, we can go with that. So let's just check that that's working okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So now we need to constrain the IK hand. So this hand here, the one that's going to follow our left hand, we need to constrain that to our sword. Now we've made a constraint here called follow hand constraint, and that's the lowest level of our second hand group. So this top level is being affected by the sword itself. This guy is the offset, and this one is what we'll constrain. So let's go ahead and do it. Select our constrain, shift select our IK, and let's constrain that guy. There we go, he's snapped into position. Absolutely perfect. Let's reposition this sword arm so that so we get something that actually resembles what we want. Okay, that's kind of close to where the right arm would be. Ignore the left. It's kind of where the right arm would be. This left is still a bit funny, but fortunately on our sword we have our offset, so we can reposition this hand using the offset And that's exactly why we created that node in the first place, anticipating that things would go mental as soon as we constrained our hand to the sword. Something like this. Okay, again, not perfect, but we'll go with it. Okay. Oh, this poor girl's arms. Dear me, they're having a bad time out here. Okay, but as you can see, we've now got both hands working with this sword, and our follow hand is working exactly as we want, and the sword is following our FK hand. So that is working exactly how we want it. Now, the tricky bit comes in animating these constraints on and off. This is where we can have a lot of problems. I'm going to go ahead and save because quite often we get fatal errors around this time. Okay, so now that we're set up, I'm just going to save it, just anticipating fatal errors, which more than likely will occur. Okay, so let's grab our hand here and let's fake in some animation. So just going to do this really rough and ready. Okay, so let's say at 15 we want her to have the sword pulled out like this. So we'll save those guys. And at 0 we want her to not have the sword in hand. 5 we'll have her pick the sword up. Okay. So at frame 5 she'll put her hand in the right position to get this sword. Don't worry about it going all mental for the time being. Okay, let's just say that that's what we're after. Oh, got a really weird hand twist going on there. I didn't spot that. What the hell is that? Okay. Okay, that's better. And then at 0, we don't want the hand to be on the sword, we want the sword to be just attached to her hip. Okay. So I'm just going to copy these keys, paste them at 0, and then edit them. Just going to pull this away from her hip so that she goes down, picks up the sword, and then moves it. Okay. I'm just going to copy this bit here so that it kind of stays in place. Something like that. Okay. So now we need to animate our constraint on and off. So our sword, which is constrained to our arm, has a constraint on it over here. You can see here sword group parent constraint, it's called. But if we click on the object that has the constraint, in this hand the sword group, then over here you can see what it's attached to. So this is attached to hand attach art anim, and you can see that we've got a value of 1 on here. We don't want that value of 1 until frame 5. So I'm going to key it at 1 on frame 5, and then on frame 4 we don't want it to exist, so put that at 0 and key that guy. So what we have now should be no sword and then sword. Amazing. And this left hand is it's wonderful. This is exactly what I want. I'm going to do a similar thing with the left hand because we don't want it to be following until this position here, which again is a shocking position anyway, but who cares. So at frame 15 we want this constraint on. So again, same process, select the object we want, find the constraint. Frame 16 we want a value of 1, so I will key that. Frame 14, sorry, it was 15, so frame 14 we want it off. So we key that. Okay, so it looks dreadful, but we've got the core mechanics working now. It starts off with the sword not being constrained to anything. At frame 5 she picks it up, comes in her hand, she puts it in front of her, and frame 15 our left hand then joins the constraint. Now we've got this weird issue of her hand jumping around, so in between the constraints we've got this popping effect. Now if you've seen my other video on how to edit constraint popping, then you'll already know what I'm about to do. If not, then I'll show you my little hack using locators and parent constraints and deleting parent constraints in order to find the exact location we want. So let's do it with this left hand first. We then have to do it with the sword. Oh my god, this arm looks dreadful, but let's do it here first. So currently, at this location, the hand is actually where we want it to be. Well, I say that. But yeah, the hand is where we want it to be. I might edit this position ever so slightly, because it's kind of dreadful. Oh, got the wrong thing selected. Okay, so I just messed with the position a little bit there, just so that we have a slightly better look going on here. So now then, let's go back to our left hand and let's sort this location out. Okay, so currently that's where we want it to be. I'll come back and key in the offset after, but currently that's exactly where we want it to be. So what I'm going to do is create a locator. Here he is here. I'm just gonna give him something in capital letters so I can find him really easy. And I want to parent constrain him to this hand so that it's in exactly the same position. So that's what I'm going to do. So select my hand, shift select my new locator, and parent constrain, maintain offset off, and then that is our locator. I'm just going to make him bigger. There we go. So he is now in the perfect position, exactly where we want him to be. However, we don't want him constrained, so we want to delete that, but we want to keep his position. For this, we're going to do a little mel command. So I'm going to type in delete, add in two, I think, grave keys there. So the dots with a slant just above your tab key. And then inside of those, I'm going to type parent constraint. And I'm just going to capitalize the C. Everything else is lowercase. Just check my spelling. Parent constraint. Perfect. So now, when I click enter, that will delete the parent constraint and it should keep him in the same position. So here I go. Good. Nothing popped. No parent constraint on this locator, but the position is perfect. Great. So, the reason we did that was purely so that this pop here can be sorted out. So now we need this hand, where is he? This guy here, to be in the same place as that locator so that you don't get this pop when the constraint happens. Okay. So I need to do my parent constraint and delete the parent constraint just like I did for the locator. The locator only exists so that I can do the same thing with this hand. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just key him quickly in this location because that's fine for me. And I'm also going to save because around this point I would expect a fatal error. Okay, so here's, oh dear, here's a thing that happens. As soon as you key an object that's constrained, it activates an attribute called blend parent. See this guy here with no keys on him, and by default he's on 0. So our constraint, even though it's turned on, it's now turned off because blend parent appeared. So I'm going to put him on 1. Most annoying. So now we've got our annoying behavior that we need to figure out. There's our pop. Okay. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Right, so what we need to do is grab this hand and now constrain him to this locator and delete it just in the same way that we did. So locator first, then shift select the hand, and the same drill, exact same drill. Parent constraint snaps to it. Okay, we like that position, so we're going to key that position. So S for key. We now have 2 keys, but we just need to delete that parent constraint now. So delete a couple of grave keys, parent constraint, and just capitalize the C for constraint. So let's give that a go. Okay, so now what should happen if all goes correct is this arm should stay where it is and only connect at this frame. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we have a ever so slight pop there. So I didn't do my locator at exactly the right time, but it's okay. You get the idea. Okay. So now I'm just gonna we can delete this locator now, by the way. No longer needed. So I'm gonna just take this hand and put him in a more relaxed position to begin with. Okay, not going to take ages with it, just put it in a different position just so that we can see this effect. Okay, so just roughing in a little bit of animation so that we can see how this constraint animation works. And that all looks pretty spot on.